Investors are different because that's just like, that's capital I look at, right? Financial partner, meaning that we're GPs on a deal, right? That's like a marriage. I view that, right? Like you have to be very, very comfortable with the person who's also going to be on the deed or also going to be on the mortgage. How I've been able to get the most out of people is through being able to empathize with them and being human. Yes, we need to have rules and we need to have regulations and what have you, and there needs to be some structure to it, but also like, I'm forthcoming. Yeah, sometimes that line of personal and professional gets blurred. But for me, so far, it's been okay.
Get ready for Real Lives of Real Estate, where the world of real estate meets the essence of your life. Buckle up as we unravel stories, homes, and the heartbeat behind it all. Let's dive into another episode. I hope you share and are encouraged. I'm here with Kyle Webster, my new contractor. I just am using him on a great project that we're doing on Maple Street in Carney, and friend and local Newark lover, and a bunch of other accolades, I'm sure. Welcome to have you, Kyle.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
No, we are happy that you could join us for sure. Trying to keep it as Newark as possible.
Yes. So Newark, we're sitting in a great building in Newark.
Yeah, it's all Newark, man. This building, actually, I drove by for like a year and a half or a year before. It was right before the pandemic. I was trying to get into this building. I couldn't get a hold of anyone. I didn't know how to do it. And I knew there was some purchase of it. I heard rumor, whatever. During the pandemic, they had these open webinars about finding out more about the Carré Scott Mansion, being a makerhood, applying, all these things. Ends up, long story short, I finally only got a hold of someone like 9 months after via personal recommendation to the building owner, developer. Okay. Signed a lease with him December of 2021. I moved in here only July of 2023.
Okay.
And we were supposed to move in January of 2023.
So it's just a fit out was just taking a while.
Oh, forever. It was brutal. Anyways, no, but so that's a little bit about this beautiful mansion. We never actually talk about the mansion, but it is like a home.
You're speaking to a contractor, right? So it kind of, it's
do you know, one of those
things I noticed.
Guess how much this guy spent on this building, right? Restoring it. It's 15,000 square feet.
Wow, 15,000 square feet.
Not including the basement. And there were structural issues all throughout.
Probably about $100 a foot, maybe $125 a foot.
So what would that be?
I'm bad at math like that, but yeah. So 15,000 times 125. You want to pull
let's do the math. Yeah, pull up the calculator.
Yeah, why not?
Whatever the numbers, I'm sure it's low.
So I'm saying like 1.8.
Oh, brother, believe it or not, this guy, you underestimate how bad the condition was. I think that's why. Yeah. Half the building, literally, it was nearly condemnable. It was at that point.
Okay.
He did everything. He restored it all by hand. So he had literally, I'm not kidding you, he was getting people who did plaster from another part of the country, literally from New York State, upstate New York. He was housing them here for 4 months for them to do plaster repair, paying for their housing as well.
Yeah.
And there's it's a historic home, and there's some little nings, whatever. So Historic Society raised him. And not only that, the guy, he had believed that the building, his name is Avi, the developer, he believed the building was speaking to him. So I believe, I might be wrong, but he spent like $8 or $9 million restoring the building.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. It's definitely more than $100 a foot.
Oh yeah, well no, it would have been like that if it was like a normal thing.
Yeah.
What ended up happening to the guy, he just said like he went like $4 million over budget. It was something like, it was so insane. It was like literally $3 million over budget. He
could have built it from the ground up, honestly.
Oh, that's what he says. He says it was like one of the worst like real estate investments of his life. In terms of the money, he's like, this is one of the worst investments. But in terms of like the passion that he has, he said it was like a joy of his life.
Yeah, I think that's what real estate does. It calls you, right? It's like if you're really attached to a project, you're going to get it done.
Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing because it's physical space. You can feel it. You can touch it.
Oh, and he like slept here. Brother, I saw this man have like several this guy inspires me so much because I literally saw him have like truly, I think, nervous breakdowns. Wow. I didn't think he was going to survive the end of the project. I would go in and literally like a contractor screwed him over. They didn't pay the subs. It was a huge thing. And he's really gone above and beyond. And now he's like fighting through. He's finally working on getting everything occupied. Because I guess maybe that's baked into the cost too, the vacancy, right? Probably that baked into the cost because it took him the timeline went past 2 years where he thought it was incomplete.
So he's got 2 years of additional holding costs.
Plus. Yeah. And so I think all that ended up making like $8 million. But yeah, it was brutal. So that's really fun. So when I always ask that question, everyone always guesses the same thing. It's like, oh, maybe 2 million, 3 million, 2.5, 1.5, 2.5, 2 million, 3 million. I'm like, 8. 8. Everyone always does the same thing. They're like, oh God. But even this tower we're in right now they almost had to knock it down.
Really?
He had to it was crazy what he had to do to save the tower.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Anyways, so about you, Kyle, not about this
Certainly.
beautiful Carré Scott Mansion in Newark that we call home here for the De Silva team. But tell us about where did you grow up and what did you grow up in?
Great. So I grew up in Glenridge, New Jersey, here in Essex County. Both my parents, my mom was an engineer for Chubb Insurance, and my dad was an educator. I'm the oldest of 3 boys, so I wear that hat proudly as the oldest son. I think, prime sort of middle class upbringing, right? I think my parents, tried to provide everything that they could, and they've done a great job sort of raising me and my brothers. I take a great deal of pride in just sort of being connected to my family. I think sort of where, and I know that we'll probably get to this in a little bit, in terms of kind of how that sort of derived my background. My mom's always been sort of numbers based, being an engineer, or just sort of STEM based, right? And so I think it was just a natural sort of path for me to kind of just pick up the mantle and kind of run with that. My grandfather was an architect; he built homes.
Oh, really?
My uncles were architects and masons, and so it's kind of in the DNA a little bit.
Like 2 or 3 different architects in the family.
Yeah.
All residential or commercial and residential?
Residential and commercial.
Oh, wow. So both.
So
Nice.
yeah, I have an uncle right now who's actually an architect for the Navy. He also does residential.
My
as well.
brother-in-law is an architect for the Navy too.
Yeah.
In the Navy.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was a job.
Yeah, I had no idea, honestly, as well. I don't know what he builds. So it's like, he's not allowed to talk about it. But
exactly. He's like the most
Yeah.
minor. My brother-in-law was telling me, he's like, I literally do the most minor things like around the base. Like they're building like a new storage facility.
Yep.
Like,
That's it.
I'm like helping the storage. So I'm like,
You're the guy.
Yeah, right. Ooh, top secret. He's
Yeah.
like, it's not top secret. I can tell you. We're storing food. It's
Yeah,
just
food. Good.
It's like, there's nothing there. And what did you grow up in? Was it a single family house, an apartment?
So it was actually
Multifamily?
a multifamily, a 2-family house. So the story is my parents actually...
In Glenridge.
In Glenridge.
Very few 2 families.
Very, very few. I think my parents had the foresight to see that, okay, we're going to rent this property for a little while. And then ultimately with the hopes of buying it, right? And then being able to supplement income by renting out the other unit. Kind of house hacking before, before it was popularized in like the 90s, right?
Yeah.
So they rented. We lived in one of the units in my current house, my parents' current house. We lived in one of the units for, I'd say, probably the first 6 or 7 years of my life. And my parents bought the home from the owner.
Were you aware when they bought the house or no?
I was, because they ended up renting out the unit beneath us to someone else. So I was aware of that because there was a little girl who my parents, a single mother with her daughter, who ended up living downstairs.
Oh, they were like, you guys should get married.
Not necessarily that, but definitely play together, right? Yeah, play together, keep quiet, kind of thing.
Okay, no, better. Keep quiet more so. And now, I was thinking about that too. Like growing up, we rented. My parents never owned. My mom now is a property owner actually in Newark, which is
Awesome.
pretty cool. She owns a 3-family on Camden Street.
Beautiful.
I remember I had a friend across the street, right? And when I lived in Lyndhurst for like a few years, and their parents owned the house. And I knew it was crazy because it was a single family house. And usually our friends from church, they live further out. So when we visit people, they live in like West Caldwell, for example, right? Or they lived in Hillside. So it was like a 25-minute drive, 20-minute drive, whatever, to Hillside, 15-minute drive. But they had a single family house.
Yep.
But for me, I was like, this person lives in the same neighborhood as me, and they have one family living in this house. Yep. So it was so strange. I had that revelation when I was probably like 5th grade, 4th grade.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, huh.
Very perceptive. Yeah.
It was weird though, because I'm like, why do they have one family? Like, no, I wish they now. I was like, where's the other apartment?
Yeah.
There was just no other apartment. It was weird. So
was it a big family or was it just a...
that house, I remember specifically which house it was because their house was baller.
Okay.
And they had 3 boys, husband and wife, right? And they had like a finished basement. They had a video game room in, and they had like the first floor had like a big living space, normal, and then top floor had bedrooms. Where us, we usually had 1 floor apartment for me and my 3 siblings, and my parents.
Gotcha.
So we would be like share a room.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Okay, but
I grew up sharing a room with my brother until double digits. I'll put it that way. Yeah.
How old were you when you switched over to single? Did you guys stay in the Glenridge, the 2-family forever?
My parents still own that house.
Do they live there still?
They
or
live
no?
there still.
Oh, so they were committed.
Yeah. They're not moving. They kind of dug their heels in. I think it was one of those. I think that generation, real estate was really, really, sort of important, right? I think it was like kind of, my parents come from like the pension generation, right? Where, it's be a civil service employee, do something, for a while, put in your time and then retire, right? But along the way, obviously, buy a home. And so they were able to buy that home, and that's their everything, right? Is that asset. So they still live there, they take care of it, and yeah.
It's probably immaculate condition.
It's in good condition.
Yeah, I'm imagining they really take pride of ownership.
They do
They
for
have
sure.
a garden
I think
in the backyard.
The interesting thing, and I will say this because you mentioned perception when you were sort of growing up and kind of what you noticed across the street. So the street that I grew up on, half the side that I'm on is Glenridge, and the other side is Bloomfield. So I always sort of grew up with that kind of little chip on my shoulder a little bit because the services were just different, right? We didn't have block parties on our blocks like some of the other blocks that you would imagine in Glenridge, where it's very, 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 very nice and affluent. So our block was just a little bit different, right? We had a little bit more diversity than sort of what's typical in Glenridge by far. Yep.
You're where where Glenridge meets East Orange and Bloomfield.
So we're actually Glenridge meets Bloomfield. So at sort of like the south end of Glenridge, right next to Bloomfield train station.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah. It is funny too because I do now. It's funny, but you grew up. How old are you now, Kyle?
32.
You're 32. So right now, Glenridge is super affluent comparatively to like all of Essex County, right? Like they are. It's Glenridge. Maybe you got Montclair, Upper Montclair, even.
Yeah, Essex Fells.
Yeah, right. But same thing actually. When you think about it, it's like there's Upper Montclair, and then there's Montclair,
yeah,
and then there's like Montclair meets East Orange,
of course.
Right? Where it's like, and then that section of Montclair, South End,
yeah,
and that section is like, it's not that nice.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because even though you're in like Glenridge, you were in it's not that nice a part of Glenridge.
Yeah.
Now it's much nicer for sure.
For sure.
But growing up, you felt as there was still diversity in that neighborhood.
I think my block was
literally
my block was the diversity. I think in town, growing up, I can recall being I think like one of 5 black families in Glenridge.
In the entirety
in the entire town. Like Glenridge is not a big town at all. It's somebody's going to correct me on this, but like it's probably like maybe 2 miles long and then like maybe a half a mile wide. It's it's a small community, right? There's really no downtown. There's not a lot of commerce. We're known for being the place where Tom Cruise was raised.
Tom Cruise from Glenridge?
Yeah, Tom Cruise, but hated Glenridge. Hated his time in Glenridge. Yeah.
Why is that?
I know a little bit of the backstory on that. So apparently, single mother, moved to Glenridge, and I think that she was just sort of ostracized at the time.
Oh, back then?
Back then, yeah, for being a single mother, sort of raising a child on her own.
In the 70s?
Yeah, and in a community that wasn't really inclusive and wasn't ready for that, unfortunately. And so, I think that Glenridge has obviously come a long way since then. But yeah, I grew up with like the most diversity on my block, right? Having
and one of 5 black families.
Literally. And I was one of them, and the other one was one of the other ones was on my block as well, like 2 doors down. So they had 2 boys.
So really, 2 out of 5 are in one block. Can I ask you a question? Maybe
certainly.
This is like ignorant of me. I don't know.
No.
Growing up, when did you come to realize that? Did you always realize like, hey, like we're one of 5 black families in this whole neighborhood? Like, where are the black families?
Yeah, I think.
Does that click?
I think it clicked in first grade where I had an incident on the playground where I sort of realized like, oh yeah, like this is who I am. Like understanding your color, understanding kind of how that plays out. And realizing that there's just not many people who look like you, right? I think that's the easiest thing for a child to sort of acknowledge is, okay, well, these people don't look like me. They're my friends, but they don't look like me, right?
Wow.
And so realizing that there are not a lot of me is just different, right? Yeah, but I had a good group of friends though. I've good group of friends growing up for sure. And my block was really, really tight, even though they were a little bit older than me. We all stuck together. So.
Oh, that's probably actually good for you. Kind of matured quicker. You had the older guys, older friends. You learned. You're a little bit wiser.
They got into a bunch of stuff, but yes.
Yeah, well, you know how it is.
That's how it is.
You can't go bad.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So wow, and I really just have a profound impact on how we grew up. Right. I'm interested in seeing so. You told me a little bit before we got on the camera here. You end up graduating in Glenridge, I imagine, right? Your
parents. So actually, I went to Glenridge Public Schools through 9th grade. Well, through 8th grade rather, and then 9th grade was at Seton Hall Prep.
Why switch?
Track. So track has been a theme in my life. Sports. My dad ran track. My mom ran track, both in college.
Wow.
Committed, right? Great athletes. I ran track in college, so it was kind of one of those things. It's a unique sport, and I think my parents were trying to put me in the best environment that was going to foster sort of my growth, right?
Wow.
And my athletic talent. So ended up going to Seton Hall Prep for 4 years.
Nice.
Obviously in West Orange,
yeah.
up the road. So that was a great experience. And then I took a postgraduate year.
What's that
at a
mean,
board.
postgraduate year?
So postgraduate years, think of it like a fifth year. That's what it is, right? It's a fifth year of high school.
Why'd you do that?
So I did that for a number of reasons. I think, first was I didn't get into the school that I wanted to get into off the bat senior year. So I was going to try and get into Princeton, didn't get in. So I ended up looking for other options, right? Secondly, from an athletic standpoint and a maturity standpoint, it allowed me, that postgraduate year allowed me sort of like, it was like an intermediate step, right?
I kind of like that.
Yeah.
That's what they do, like pretty much like in Europe, I imagine, right? Don't they do like a gap year?
Yeah, gap years
It's the way.
Yeah, and I think for someone who, like myself, had been really, really family-based and had not spent much time on my own, sort of discovering my own sort of living habits and what have you, it was good, right? It was good to be in a different environment and to be living on my own. And also, don't forget, like Seton Hall Prep is an all-boys school, right? And so it's very, very different, very, very different environment. And to go from that to, a co-ed environment in college, I've seen a lot of guys crash out and burn.
Oh, yeah,
right?
I can imagine.
You go from being really cooped up to having all the freedoms in the world, right? And mom and dad are not around. So I had that sort of intermediate step
to grow as a man, et cetera. And then what college did you end up going to?
University of Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, down in Philadelphia.
And you ran in track there?
I did.
That was awesome. And now, what did you major there?
Political science and American history, actually.
Okay, so here's the grandiose question.
Ask it.
Track star, come on. American science, history, love life, boom. American political science, I think you said?
American history and political science.
American
so
history
major.
and political science. Yep. How does that connect with you finding your way into the promised land of real estate? Because I remember during that gap year, didn't you get your license, or where did that? So
no, I did.
That.
So I got my license.
Real
this
estate
goes back to my
sales
mom.
license.
Yeah, real estate sales license, right? So as I mentioned before, my mom was an executive over at Chubb Insurance, right? She was an industrial engineer by trade. She made a late sort of career change. They were doing a bunch of layoffs at Chubb, and she just wanted to do something else, right? Realized that she had the extremely well versed in numbers and just really a smart woman. And so she wanted to try her hand in real estate, right? And so she actually became the team leader. When she got her license, we got our licenses together. Actually.
No way.
Same time, took the test the same day. I was giving her a bunch of slack about, if she didn't pass and I passed, obviously my mom, there's that competitiveness there.
Yeah.
But she ended up being the team leader at the brokerage in Clifton for Keller Williams.
No way.
Yeah.
So you and your mom really got put on together into the KW world.
100%.
And you entered in through you entered in through the real estate path.
Yes.
What was your goal when you got into real estate versus your mother's goal?
So my goal was literally just to have some spending money, right? I was just like,
I'll sell a house a year, I'll be good.
Yeah, one house
houses,
a year,
3 houses,
some
maybe
lease.
a lease.
Exactly. Wow. You hit the nail on the head, right? Some leases, enough money where I can just say, okay, well, I have a little bit of spending change, right? You're a broke college student. I was an athlete. You don't make anything, so
you can always do a lease.
Exactly. You can do a lease, and it's relatively simple.
A week, done.
That's it. And so, that was my sort of foray into real estate, is getting my license at 18 and, doing it during the summers in between my internships.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a trip. And now your mom, did she go on to, she was highly committed. She became team lead.
Yeah.
Yeah. You become a TL, is your mom still in real estate now?
No. So she actually sort of left real estate. She actually had a bout with breast cancer and then left like 3 years ago.
Okay. And then she says, stress level.
Enough, right? Yeah. Enough. She's done what she needed to do.
She worked, like you said, the pension generation, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And now, all right. So then you do the license. Did you ever think at any point when you were realtor, hey, I'm going to go all in on this and make wealth? And did that ever come across your mind?
Honestly, no, I don't think so. Because I thought that actually coming out of college, let me step back. In college, I thought that I was going to be a lawyer, right? I thought that political science and American history, I thought I was going to go to law school. I was doing some homework and then realizing that that wasn't the path for me. No. I just didn't see many people who were happy, and I think that happiness and freedom has kind of been a train throughout, sort of a current in my life and my career trajectory. I did the whole Wall Street thing as soon as I graduated, right? So I did that.
You graduate college, day one, I'm going to
Wall Street.
I'm going to Wall Street. What were you doing on Wall Street?
So I worked during my internships, during my summers at Penn. I was working at NASDAQ, right? I had a great opportunity to work at the stock exchange. So I worked there. I had a job offer, probably, I think, at the beginning of my senior year, right? Junior summer, I got my job offer, and I was like, okay, I'm good. I did that right. I will say that much.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then I worked at NASDAQ for a year, a little bit more than a year, and then I worked at JP Morgan, and that was sort of the path, right? But by no means did I think that I was going to come back to real estate and hit it big. I thought that excuse me, I thought that my, path was going to be through potentially finance, right?
Yeah.
That was it. But it just turned out not to be for me.
Why wasn't it for you?
A number of reasons. I think that seeing like the whole meritocracy thing that they preach on Wall Street is not real, and that's sort of what I like. Just kind of, it's the brass tacks. You see it, and you see it quickly, right? It's like, oh well, the best will sort of thrive, and that's not necessarily the case, right?
What do you think the other variables are?
It's some of it's EQ, right? Some of it's like how well you're like with people. Some of it's just plain out, simple favoritism, nepotism, right? There's that element too, right? And I think there's just corporate politics. There's all of it, which is it sort of muddies the water, right?
Yeah, it's very tough. I don't know. I can't do it.
Yeah, and I didn't do it long, right? And so I recognized that early on, and I said, a good friend of mine in college asked me a phenomenal question, and I think that this has been one of those sort of inflection points that I've had. He said, Kyle, if you don't want your boss's job, why are you doing your current job?
Say it again?
If you don't want your boss's job, why are you doing your current job? And the idea behind that being that, like, if you want to progress, you're ultimately going to take your boss's seat, right? That's sort of the natural sort of food chain, right? Is to kind of progress.
Great question.
But if you don't want your boss's job, then why are you doing what you're doing? If you want your, 3 levels above you, that's one thing, right? And I saw that I wanted to be kind of being able to make decisions, be an investor, be responsible for my own sort of track record, and have more autonomy and sort of ability to, sort of move the needle, so to speak, right? But you don't have that as an analyst, right? You don't even have that as an associate or a VP. So it made sense for me to kind of, believe in myself and go do something on my own.
So when you said go do something on your own, was that like realtor salesperson? What was that?
So it was a combination of both, right? It was a combination of doing sales at the beginning, sales and leases, but also I had the goal of just buying assets, right? So
because your mind was really open when you were on Wall Street. You're like, 100%. You were saying like, I want to be autonomous. I want to build my own track record.
Yeah.
Okay, that's going to take me another 10 years at JP Morgan if I'm great, if the meritocracy really, that's not happening.
Yeah.
I may need to go get too many dinners with people I don't want to talk to, and, go play golf or something. I don't want to do that. So then you say, I'm going to build my own track record via real estate investing.
Yeah.
How did that click though? Were you just reading a book one day?
I think it clicked for me once I was exposed to, I think everyone of our generation, bigger pockets, right? Like, just
bigger pockets change so many people's lives.
Yeah. And not that I'm a huge proponent of bigger pockets so much as just like the idea of, education around real estate, right? And just sort of it becoming more and more sort of in like the cultural zeitgeist, right? People are talking about it. People are aware of it. And I think that sort of naturally it made sense, right, to do the house hacking. And so that's what I did, right? I bought a house while I was working on Wall Street, right? Bought a house in East Orange, New Jersey, and that was it. That was the first one.
It was East Orange, New Jersey?
East Orange, Park Avenue.
Wow, nice. I bought my first house East Orange too.
Yeah.
And what'd you buy? Single family, 2 family, 3
3 family?
3 family. Did you move in or no?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. What a trip. How much you buy for?
This was $225, I think.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So what year is this?
This was 2017.
How'd you find the deal?
I found the deal through the broker, actually. Through my broker.
That's the
David.
David?
Yeah.
Oh, so how did that work out? That's interesting. Because usually brokers, they don't really help anyone in the team.
Yeah.
Right? They usually just hoard.
100%. So he was gracious enough to help me with the deal. Right?
So would you mind walk? Because I think I was with one of my team members today, and he's putting an offer on his client on an off-market property of ours on Bergen Street. It's a duplex. It's $430,000, including our $435 including our commission. Okay. But he can get it for $410. It's worth probably $500.
So
I said $525.
Yeah.
As is. So I said, brother, you got to go ahead and make this happen. And maybe if you do a little bit of repairs, it ends up being worth $500, $525. But whatever. I said, you can do this. You'll walk in with $6,000 equity. Why don't you buy it? You can use your FHA.
Yep.
He's like, I don't think I should do it, man. I said, why shouldn't you do it? Like, do it. Do it right now. You can make $70,000 on equity.
Yeah.
And then a year from now, you fix it up. Maybe you sell for $550. You walk away. You sell it. You make $80,000. You win.
Yeah.
Or you keep it as a 2-fam.
And that's it.
But it was so interesting because he's like, I don't think I should do it. And I was so mind-blowing because I know so many brokers that whenever they get opportunity, and they hoard from their team. They hoard from their agents. Oh, this is my investment, mine.
Yeah.
But it's actually a terrible way of doing business because when your team gets equity, in my opinion, or that opportunity, then they become like a walking testimonial, not only to their clients, right? Like our clients who are looking to buy a house with them, but they become a testimonial to like, in this brokerage, we grow wealth.
Yeah.
In this brokerage, we win.
Certainly.
So it's like I had a huge conversation with this guy. I said, "Man, you're making a big mistake.
Yeah.
You got to buy this house yourself right now."
Do it.
Anyways, I know. But anyways, so I got a little ramble.
I think it's an important to understand like that. People. There's some statistic about like the number of agents, the percentage of agents that actually own investment properties.
It's like 5 or 10%.
Yeah,
brother.
very small.
Very
right?
small.
So people,
5%.
And that's the thing, right? People, we're in the space, but we're not actually doing what we preach, right? Or doing what we're working on a daily basis, right? And so to be involved is important.
Wow, that's actually really good. Yeah, you're right. We're like hypocrites.
You're making other people a lot of money, right? You're finding deals for people and you're making them a lot of money.
A lot, and we're talking like
thick
a
margins.
Lot. Yeah. Okay, so how did David push you to buy the 3 family? How did that come about?
Yeah, so he sourced the deal. He knew the seller, and he pushed me to buy the deal, and he sort of walked me through the process. That was back in 2017, and at the time that brokerage had, because obviously my mom was the team leader there, that brokerage had all of the pieces to the puzzle, right? So they had the lending arm. I think at the time it was Bond Street Mortgage with Craig Andrewley, and there were some other folks that were there as well. And that's what they were doing. They were helping FHA buyers, sort of go through the process, right?
Really take off.
Yeah, and I think that's a noble cause, right?
Very noble.
To make sure that people are able to find a home. Right. Granted, that market was a lot different in 2017.
Well, you just said 225 for a 3 fam. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, I know. If I could repeat that deal right now, I'd buy 3 of them.
I would
as many as you could. Yeah.
I would cut off my arm. Yeah. Just buy like as many as I could. No, wow. Yeah, no, that's definitely the way. Okay, now did you I'm guessing you kept that. Do you still have it or not?
Yeah, I still have it. Yeah.
Wow, you kept your first.
Still have it.
That's a love.
Yeah,
that's
for
good.
sure.
And now, let me guess, it's cash flowing great.
Yeah, 100%. It's been a great asset. I've refied it. Made my money on it. Like
you pulled out. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Winner.
Great deal.
Yeah,
There's
great
no
deal.
doubt about it.
Oh, so good. I'm so happy for you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, and then once you get that right, what did your friends think of you leaving Wall Street to get into real estate investing and agency?
So that was the big thing. A lot of people were like, "Why? Right? Why are you? You're leaving the golden goose. Nobody leaves. Nobody does this. Nobody does the leaving J.P. Morgan to work on their own. Right? It's not heard of." And so I think to a very real extent, I think there was a lot of doubt, right? About like the ability to sort of make it. But I viewed it like, okay, well, I can be unhappy here, or I can try and find happiness elsewhere, right? And try and do something on my own. And the worst comes to worst, I'm still young. Right, we can get back in the workforce if I need to. I don't have dependents yet, right?
Yeah.
So now's the time, right? Now's the time. If you got to make a move, and so I did. But 100% there was hesitancy and doubt, and like, oh well, even the folks at J.P. Morgan before I left were like, well, are you sure that you want to do this?
Really?
Like, do you want to leave?
Wow. And what were your parents saying?
My parents were saying, go be happy, go do it on your own. Figure it out on your own, because I think they saw me like,
wow,
how stressed I was. There was a period in time where I was like, we're talking working, getting up and being on the train because I was commuting. Being on the train 6 o'clock, being in the office 6:45, leaving the office. Sometimes I'm leaving the office at 2 a.m. in a car, like coming back, and it's just not. It's not sustainable long term. Oh,
it's not. And even like right now, I don't know. Have you paid attention to J.P. Morgan, like since the pandemic, how much your salary like has increased?
Yeah.
Like just to be competitive now, you basically have to buy people's like well-being.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. Like you're like, hey, we know this is going to cost you well-being. My brother, he was with BCG.
Okay.
He just finished his 7th year. Now he's transitioning. You coach up or you coach out. That's the whole thing there.
Okay.
So he's like transitioning out of BCG, and he opened up. He's like. Not open up, but watching him, this guy, man, it was one of the most insane lives. And I worked a lot. Like when I first started,
I know
in
you
real
work
estate,
hard.
Yeah, I work a lot as my own business owner. I'm all in.
You have to.
I do not play games. I'm willing to die. I love what I do. I'm willing to run for it. I'm willing to live for it. Perhaps not die because now I have a dependent, so I wouldn't die for this. I'd probably die for him first, and my wife. But I saw my brother, my older brother Brian. Dude, the sheer volume of corporate stress is insane. Yeah. And they get golden handcuffs on you. You could be making $400,000 or $500K a year.
Yeah.
So then at that point, you're like, what am I going to do? Leave this?
Yeah, exactly.
I grew up poor. We grew up super poor.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, am I going to grow up? Am I going to leave $400,000 or $500,000? I'm going to make $100,000 bonus at the end of the year.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying? It's like, you can't really do that.
Yeah.
So
and you've created a lifestyle where you got to maintain some of it to a certain degree.
And I think that's how they get you.
Yeah.
My other friend right now, he's starting with Deloitte. That's another consulting firm, right? Deloitte.
Yep.
And basically, I think it's Deloitte. I don't know. But basically, he says, he goes like, when I first got into the industry out of college, I was making like X amount of money, maybe 100 grand. He told me 150 grand, whatever, 120 grand. And he's like, was so much money. I was so content. But they put me up at these 5-star hotels. Every restaurant is 5-star. Everything we do is so baller. He said, when I'm by myself, I feel poor.
Yeah.
So I got to make more money. I got to get that all the time. And I'm kind of thinking maybe that's how they trap you in. That's my theory. I don't know, man.
I would say it's a damn good theory. Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, you started your business. How much money did you make your first year in real estate, brother? Think about it honestly.
First year in real estate.
I would probably say a lot less than you were making at JP Morgan.
100%. Yeah, we can go far and say maybe half.
Okay.
Right.
So you took a 50% pay cut, probably to work the same amount of hours.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, I guess moving forward, how does a dating life look like for someone who's getting into real estate? Were you dating at the time? Were you single? You said, hey, I'm just going to focus on my business.
So I was focusing on my business, right? I was focused on my business. I was doing deals. And I think that was my time, right? It was kind of the time to be a sponge and like.
How old were you at the time, more or less?
So right out of college, so think of like 24, or 23, 24.
Women were the last thing in your mind. You said, I got to grow my business.
Yeah, it's growing your business and then finding time to obviously to date. But yeah. I think it was primarily, just focusing on kind of your craft, right? And perfecting it and trying to get better at it. I think that there were a lot of resources also available at that time, especially with the Keller Williams brand. Like just the amount of knowledge that was just being transferred, right? Keller Williams, they preach the whole, as a training organization, right? An educational organization, educational platform. And so I really took advantage of all of that, right? Going to all of these different trainings, going to all of these different, events, just to learn more, right? Just to be sort of in the sphere of information, right? You want to soak it up. And so that's what I was doing for a while.
I think that's one of the biggest hacks, the educational piece, and really leaning into it consistently. The first time I saw you, actually, I remember the exact day. It was a Friday night City Men's meeting at, what school is this?
Central High School?
Yeah, Central, sorry. So it was at Central High School. And you went up and you were in front of the whole men. There's like 100 men in the room, right? It's my first time I was there, I think. First one I went to. Or second one I went to. It was maybe a year and a half ago. 2 years ago. 2 years, actually. And I remember I saw you and you said something so interesting. You got up, you're like, it was so interesting. You got up, you said, here's what I've done. I've bought X amount because now you're an investor, you're a developer, right? You're a general contractor, builder. You were just talking about you buying the note to do big project in East Orange, the whole nine, right? So now you really kind of, I don't want to say graduated, right? Because I think everyone has respect in their own, like I'm a realtor. I love being a realtor.
Yeah.
I really do enjoy it. I honestly enjoy it more than I do investing. Frankly, I'm much better at just being a realtor.
Is that because you like dealing with people?
I love people.
Yeah, and I can tell that, and it shows, right? It shows in what you do, and it shows in how you interact with people. I think that's a beautiful thing. You have to lean into that, right? Lean into your strengths.
Who I am.
Yeah.
All I want to do is deal with people. I hate dealing with. You're a person, but I hate dealing with contractors.
Yeah.
I hate with all my soul dealing with tenants. I hate it. I don't talk to any tenant. If a tenant has my number, I immediately block them.
Yeah.
There's no reason any tenant should ever talk to me.
Yeah.
I have my property manager, Karina. You met her.
Yeah.
And my executive assistant. There's no reason for you to ever talk to me. She's the only person you talk to.
Yeah.
You never call me. That's how I see it. Anyways, but you said this at that men's meeting. It was so beautiful. That's how I immediately liked you. Because you were like, this is what I've done. You were very transparent. So I bought this. I'm doing it. I'm making mistakes. And that's what I loved. You said like, I don't have it all figured out, but I'm doing it. I have a proven way. I'm getting some success on my track record.
Yep.
Right? This is 2 years ago. And I am offering you the opportunity. If you want to do it, we can do it together. We can partner on deals together. If you don't want to partner, it's okay. I will give you free consulting.
Yeah.
I will give you free advice. I will take time out of your day, which I'm sure you're busy, right? You're just not sitting on the couch all day, right?
No.
Okay, yeah, you have a schedule, right? Yeah, you walk in on the phone, the podcast ends, you're back on the phone, and you're like, hey, I'll meet with you guys, I'll coach you guys to a room of about 100 men.
Yeah.
And I was so interested in that because usually when I hear that, there's a course that you have to pay for.
Yeah, no.
Or you're in a brokerage, so there's a commission cut, so you're kind of like, okay. But these are just people you don't even know in Newark.
Yeah. I think my whole sort of thing, I think in just life in general is like each one teach one, right? I think I've been raised around folks who have been given a lot, right? They may not have like a ton of financial wealth, but they have knowledge, they have experience, they have these things that are very, very sort of tangible in a lot of ways that they can pass on. And so I think that, if I've gone through the gauntlet, my desire is for everyone to have, you know, the same, right? Like have you too can have it, right? I'm not particularly special. I've followed, I've listened, I've learned from people, but I definitely want everyone to win, right? And I think that's sort of just in my nature is wanting to give, and especially in a community that I care about, right? I mentioned that I grew up in Glenridge, but I was actually born in Newark, right?
Stop.
So I was born at Beth Israel Hospital. And so my dad has always been sort of involved in the community, and I grew up
in Newark.
Yeah, involved here in Newark and East Orange, and just, you know, reminded me of, you know, what I have, right? What I have and what other people who look like me may not have, right? And so being aware of that and understanding that you have an obligation to help, I think is important. So yeah, I don't have a course to sell you. It's not whether you give me a call on the GC side or a realtor side, it doesn't matter to me. But if you're genuine about this craft in this space, I'm going to help you because I've done that, right? Someone said to me, if you want to learn, I'll teach you.
I think it's so cool what your father did for you, though. I'd love to meet this guy because he sounds like a legend.
Yeah.
He said, because you just said, he's like, you had Glenridge, you were 1 in 5, black families in Glenridge, right? Yeah. Example, right? Maybe 1 in 10, who knows? But the point is this. I find oftentimes, I'll give you the great example in the Brazilian culture.
Certainly.
Okay?
Yeah.
Very interesting. In Brazilian cultures, my parents were actually the opposite. My parents, they actually ran away from the Brazilian culture when they came to America. They became my mother more so than my father. He became very Americanized. All Brazilians, my church was in Newark, right? In Ironbound and McWhorter Street. The Brazilians would live or Portuguese would live in Warren County, Warren Township rather, and Hillside. They would live in Elizabeth, Kearney. That was it.
Yeah.
That was the area. If you were Brazilian, you lived in these townships. The end. Or Newark. That's it. Newark. Done. What happens? My parents, they did everything they could. They did everything they could to get us out of those townships, to get us into Lyndhurst, North Arlington, Rutherford. We went up the Passaic River.
Yep.
On the east side. And the reason why I give your father a lot of credit is my parents, they gave us, we would come back to the church very often, right? But our church was our only community of Brazilians. We didn't really see Brazilians in real life. We just only saw Brazilians within a church structure. Because even like the church's parties, etc. My parents, they had their own group of friends.
Okay.
They really weren't, you know what I mean? So it was so interesting because I hear your father, he didn't just leave you in Glenridge saying, hey, we're trying to be in like the highest socioeconomic bracket.
Yeah, no.
It's like, no, we're trying to be like, we are here, but we don't forget that the vast majority of people who look like us in Essex County are here.
Yeah.
So we want to be around. We want you to see the people that look around you, look like you. Most of them don't have the opportunity you have.
Exactly.
Very interesting that he did this.
Yeah, I think that's his background. You know, my dad grew up, you know, in a single parent household.
Yes.
And so, you know, Teaneck, New Jersey, I think my dad was definitely on welfare at one point. So he grew up with, I think, a chip on his shoulder as well.
Interesting.
And I think, you know, just sort of that idea that we talked about, right? Like each one teach one, and realizing that you have a place, and you have a place, and if you know better, you do better, right? And helping people out. I think being exposed to athletics at an early age, track and then football, for me, were critical in terms of just development, right? And realizing what you have, and sort of expanding your social circle as a child, right? And so my parents definitely pushed that.
I would say this without a doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
You ready for it?
Yeah, go.
Your parents putting you that early on set you up for massive success. Because what they did, I just thought about this now, and this is how real estate really impacts people. I'm not talking about real estate like the industry. I'm talking about real estate like city boundaries.
Yep.
There's a thing that in Florida they do. I think it's a wonderful thing they do. Basically, it's a lottery system of just because you live in Newark doesn't mean you go to Newark schools. You can go to Glenridge schools and live in Newark.
Yep.
There's no like, hey, this town has these schools, that town has that schools. Yeah. It's like a lottery system. And you can apply for it, like depending on where you're at there, to see if you would be a good fit for the school. I think it's like a great thing in Florida. But my friend who moved down there told me his kids, they lived in Newark. Like, dude, the Newark schools, they were like, this was terrible. Yeah. They could not do it. They said they're in a neighborhood just like Newark, a city just like Newark, but their kids go to schools like Glenridge's schools. Said, how do you guys do this? How is that possible? He's like, that's what we do here in Florida. You can go anywhere within the county.
Okay.
It's like the county has the schools.
County district.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but your parents, what they did is, from what I'm seeing, they allowed you to escape the bubble and be able to play in both worlds.
Yeah, you have to.
Well, You do have to. Very few understand.
Yes.
Yeah, dude.
Certainly.
I had the same thing. I was in Rutherford High School, right, 6th grade to senior year. We were evicted, I believe, 4 times in those 6 years, 3 times in those 6 years. And we lived in 5 different places in those 6-year time. And I remember seeing like, man, everyone here has a single family, right? That was a big thing. I'm like, man, everyone's got a house, right? Whoa. And my friend David Choi from Leverage Companies, he was my best friend in high school. We stayed best friends throughout the past 15 years, right? We've been friends, one of my oldest friends my whole life.
Awesome.
He became a business partner. He got me into real estate in a way.
Really?
It was him and my other friend, Juan Carlos. So Juan Carlos, he paid for me to get my real estate class, but David was really amazing friend.
That's awesome.
I love that guy. I had no money to my name. He held me down, $400. He was with Exit Realty and Lucky and the Ironbound.
Okay.
Anyways, David Choi, because my parents, like, they gave me the Newark, Ironbound, Brazilian, Portuguese, like lock your doors.
Yeah.
Right? Like someone just got beat up with a bat down the block from the church.
Yeah.
And no, but we're going home in Rutherford. So all the time I saw these 2 worlds.
Yeah.
2 worlds, 2 worlds, 2 worlds. And then, so I could be in the environment where it's like, oh, this is, and that's like at the time it was middle class. Now Rutherford's become upper middle class. But I could be in that room of like, okay, these people are like, they have some houses.
Yeah.
Right. These guys bringing in like $1 million, $500,000. And like, I could be at the church where it's like, this family is bringing in $60,000. Like both parents together are making like $65,000. Like the whole household income.
Yeah. With children. Yeah. Multiple children.
Like literally.
Yeah.
So anyways, and now, okay. So I guess fast forward to where you're at today.
Certainly.
What does life look like for Kyle Weber?
So life is life is good. I'm perfecting my craft, still doing a lot of just learning, right? And putting myself in the right places and the right people like yourself, being around the right folks in terms of the orbit. But I think you're asking for tangibles. So obviously I have the construction company, right?
More so actually not tangibles. More so, I guess tangibles then impact. So yes, construction company,
and then real estate investing, right? So I tell everyone this, right? The construction company is how I pay my bills, right? That's the day to day. That's the cash flow. I don't eat off of my real estate. I just never have. It's just not how I was taught to invest. Only when there's refis or sales, right? Otherwise, I'm not eating.
What does that mean? Eat.
So I'm not taking any money and putting it into my pocket per se on the personal side.
So let's say let's say your portfolio, just example, profits $15,000 a month. Example.
Certainly.
What do you do with that money?
That stays in the account.
Stays in the account.
That's it. Yeah.
And what does that money do?
That just grows.
Do you reinvest the money when it at a certain point or no?
No, I haven't yet.
Stop.
Yeah. I only reinvest, so I don't reinvest the actual cash flow, right? That just stays there as like a reserves for the actual property account. I reinvest whatever I have from a cash out refi or from a sale. That's how I do it.
So you'll leverage the debt.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay. Now you seem like a very down to earth guy. General construction is, general contracting is very stressful. Are you working with more so end users or other investors?
I work with investors a lot, right? Okay. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Investors and then also like nonprofits. Nonprofits have been good to me.
Really?
Nonprofits and cities, So there are cities that we work with that we're doing a lot of work because, as you know, right, in the subsidized space, when you're playing with affordable housing, right, there's a lot of upkeep, right? A lot of compliance, a lot of, fire safety, a lot of that, paint, the whole thing.
Literally.
So that's what we do,
a lot of
right?
money.
And we specialize in doing that and helping folks who have affordable portfolios or have compliance issues, and we help them. I stay away from the end user because it's just a different ball game.
Yeah, I'm doing.
It's just a different ball
I told
game.
you I'm building this house in Ironbound.
Yeah.
I'm getting this, interior like building designer, architecture designer. He's like, just let you know, I never work with end users. And I go, okay, will you work with me? He goes, I really don't think I will, but. If we do end up, making you an opportunity, if we do end up with opportunity, we will have to charge you extra.
Yeah.
I'm like, just curious, why am I going to get charged more? He said, you're going to take about 3 times the work.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm pretty decisive. He said,
no,
you're going to take about 4 times the work. And he made a joke out of it. He goes, you're exactly the kind of person who ends up making me do so much more. I'm not trying to offend you, sir. I'm like, and I'm thinking, and I've already sent over a change.
A change order.
And we haven't even started design. I'm like, I know I said this kind of kitchen. I want this kind of kitchen.
Yeah.
And he's like, I told you. I'm like, oh my
here
God.
it goes.
So I guess you seem so composed. how are you able to maintain such a level of composure and such a high stress? You're not like you're very different. I want to be clear.
Yeah.
I just bought my first 6 units. You're you're doing bigger projects than I am. How are you staying composed in the stress of it all?
So I think a lot of it's a good poker face, right? Because there is a lot of stress underneath. It's like the duck. The duck's cool up top, and then their legs are kicking underneath. But with that said, I think it boils down to having a good team too, right? So having the right people in place who are competent and know what they're doing. I rely on my partners, right? I rely on delegating responsibility on the construction side. So I have a great foreman, I have great subs, I have a great team, right? And having very clear responsibilities and roles in terms of like expectations, right? Like what are you expected to do, right? What's the level of quality and communication that you expect, and making sure that that's sort of filtered out throughout your organization. That's for sure. And then on the investment side, my partners are great, right? And they're much bigger fish than I am. And so it's good because I'm able to learn, right? I'm able to learn, and I'm the small guy in the room to a degree, for sure. But being able to learn from them, right?
You're 32, you're not 62. My big thing I'm struggling now is I feel like this is not a good thing by any means. The majority of rooms I'm in, I am the big guy in the room.
Yeah.
And it's a very bad thing. And I'm not big.
Yeah.
Like I know in reality I'm like an inchworm, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, it's hard in the realtor, not real estate developer, but realtor world to find because our team does about 200 units a year.
Okay. Yeah, it's volume.
It's volume, and we're doing about 100 million. The other kind of people who are doing those kind of units are more like bougie. Like you have people who I have a lot of respect for, like Sue Adler team.
Yeah.
You have like the Michelle Pius.
Different markets also.
Different markets.
Right? They're not playing in Newark the same way
That's
that you
what
are.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
So like the people in Newark, the second guy does like 30. We did 91 houses last year in Newark. The second guy is like these 2 old school Portuguese guys, nothing but love and respect. But it's like 40 units, 30 units, and then the fourth guy is like 20 units.
You're a different level. That's just what it is.
So I'm saying like in Newark residential, it's like who's here?
Yeah, you.
That's it.
Yeah, and we see you, right?
Yeah, right. But it's like. I'm really envious of you, and that you find yourself in these bigger rooms.
Yeah, I think that I've tried my best to get back in the rooms that I was in on the corporate side at JP Morgan, right? So that's my goal, is to be able to get back in the room and be a developer that they work with, right? That's like my goal, right? Is to be one of the partners that they work with. And they just don't work with that many people of color, and they don't work with that many people who are small developers, right? So it's a very limited room, right? But we're trying, we're chipping away at it. And so it's I think it's a matter of putting yourself in the right mindset and the right people, and taking risk. I think that I've taken more risk. People think that success is just some type of formula. It's hard work. It's risk taking. It's loneliness as an entrepreneur, which is something that we can go on.
Do you feel
vibes about?
Do you feel at any time that's been lonely on your journey?
Oh, for sure. It's lonely all the time because. I'd be lying to you if I said that I knew that I had the answers at all the time, right? I have conviction in myself, and I know that I can do things. But yeah, do I weigh certain decisions when you make them? 100%. Do you look back and be like, okay, making sure that this is the right move? My big thing is not to lose what I already have. That's how I sort of calculate decisions. Is like, okay. Yes, this can be some monumental increase in terms of, my impact, net worth, whatever you want to call it, whatever metric you're looking at. But is it going to, if this goes south, is this going to wipe out whatever I've already done?
Wow.
And so if it's going to do that, then I don't make those decisions, right? Because I'm like only in it so that I'm able to, linearly progress, right? I'm not trying to, become some, billionaire overnight or whatever.
No.
That's by no means.
Now, I will say though, because I find myself in the same position.
Yeah.
I was literally just talking to my wife about this last night, literally. And I find myself in that position sometimes where I'm like, I'm trying to explain to my wife a situation I was going through.
Yeah.
And I'm also a Christian, right? So I have a Christian business owner, which is even a smaller group. And I pay for this membership to this like program and coaching where you meet up with other Christian business owners once a month. And it's really, really helpful. But I was trying to explain to her a situation I was in. I could just see she really gave it her all, but it was just, you can't really she just didn't get it.
Yeah.
How do you go about handling the situations where you're in a tough spot, you feel the weight, you kind of maybe feel like you are going to lose what you made.
Yeah.
And you look left and right and you're the only one at the line.
Yeah.
What do you do?
It boils down to me like seeking counsel from people who I trust, right? Whether that's my parents, whether that's other entrepreneurs. Yeah, I think that's the answer for me is like I genuinely try and like form consensus, right? To try and like reach an opinion, reach a end destination that I think makes sense. And if it feels right, then we'll do it, you know? But I also rely because I realize that entrepreneurship is entrepreneurship, right? Yes, you can be, you know, selling real estate. Real estate's a widget, right? But there are other entrepreneurs and they deal with similar, very, very similar problem sets.
Very wise. That's my one hack I've learned.
Yeah.
It's not, you like real estate's not that special.
Yeah. It's special in that it's, you know, it's a huge tool for wealth generation.
Yeah,
but like,
it's special there, but I'm telling you, entrepreneurship,
No.
it's just a widget.
It's a widget. And
Yeah.
so people who are dealing with widgets and dealing with people who are, you know, employing people and taking risk and doing these things and, you know, sort of making these business moves, you're like-minded, right? And so I have a group of guys who I can rely on, who have made decisions that are similar, right?
Yeah.
And who I can say, okay, well, let me go to you and ask you, does this, you know, pass a sniff test? Is this like, does this pass the gut check, right? Does this make sense?
Yeah, you mentioned that you have a very streamlined, and one of the keys to your ability to grow and the scale that you're doing and be confident in that and be at peace and composure is a great team.
Yeah.
How are you able to manage boundaries, personal boundaries with your team members? You know, whether it's a job site or, you know, an investor who's perhaps crossing the line personally.
Yeah. So investors are different because that's just like, that's capital I look at, right? My partners, I view anyone that I'm in a relationship with as like a partner, whether that's financial part, like, let me step back. Financial partner, meaning that we're GPs on a deal, right? That's like a marriage. I view that, right? Like you have to be very, very comfortable with the person who's also going to be on the deed or also going to be on the mortgage with you. That's like the ultimate trust. Same thing with, you know, the guys who are on my team. I trust them implicitly, right? And that's the personal side. I just think that in many regards, through my leadership style, how I've been able to get the most out of people is through being able to empathize with them and being human. Yes, we need to have rules and we need to have regulations and what have you, and there needs to be some structure to it. But also, like, I'm forthcoming with kind of how I deal with my guys, right? They know where I'm coming from. And yeah, sometimes that line of personal and professional gets blurred. But for me, so far, it's been okay.
Wow.
It's been okay so far.
What do you attribute that to?
I attribute that to me trying to find solutions, right? I try and make sure that people are happy with it when they deal with me. That, you know, you walk away from a situation, you're like, okay, well, he did right. You know, he did the right thing. You know, because this is not a game where it's winner take all. I don't view that. I don't view business that way. It's like at the end of the day, it's my name, right? My name's on the line. With every transaction that I do, with every partnership that I do, every job that I do, my name's on the line. So I need to make sure that if my name's on the line, making sure that the people who are working for me, working with me, they understand that, right?
Very interesting, because I completely agree.
Yeah.
Your mindset is the way. It's difficult to keep that mindset, I find, in moments of high financial stress.
Oh, it's tough.
I find it best to not put myself in a position of high financial stress. So I put all my chips down on, I talked to you about it in December.
Yeah, it's a big move.
Yeah, I basically emptied out my bank account on a property. I emptied out the business's bank account. I had a $65,000 bill hit that I didn't anticipate for like my 401, my Roth or whatever it was. I had to do it for tax purposes, whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't see that coming, and ended up having to take out like $60K of personal loans. And then another like, it was like $70K of personal loans, all that stuff. And I ended up like putting myself in so much stress. Yeah. Thankfully I built like, you ended up being very profitable, the stress I endured, but it was not worth it. Because the way I treated others, I felt was more like harsh. I treated myself harsh. I wasn't proud of myself in that like 45-day period. I felt like I was a lesser version of me, right? So I can definitely agree. In order to, I can definitely empathize. In order to be at that level, like, you know, hey, very forthcoming, you got to like really maintain that composure. Yeah. Because if you don't have it, your team doesn't have it.
Yeah, no, you spoke to something that was incredibly true and valid for me, right? Being introspective and like looking and taking sort of an assessment of your own behavior. I think that's what I did when I was working in the corporate space. I was like, I'm being more of a snippy person. I'm adopting my circumstances and my environment too much. And it's just not who I am by nature, right? To be that person. Yeah, you can turn that on and turn that off. There's a time and place to have, be very, very tight with things. But there's also a time and place where you need to be empathetic with people, right? And you need to actually be able to speak to someone and have a conversation.
For sure.
And I think that for me, it couldn't be truer, right? To figure out where those moments of pain are, where you're seeing yourself that you're not being like yourself, and do less of that, right?
Wow.
And try and stay away from those situations, or try and create as much. Put yourself in the best position for you to be your best self, right? That's at the end of the day, that's it.
What would you say is your favorite type of construction job to do?
Ooh,
Just curious, popped in my head.
a favorite type of construction.
Because you've done it residential.
Yeah.
You've done commercial.
Yeah.
Have you done any industrial?
No.
Okay.
No.
Have
no
you done
industrial.
any ground up development?
So we're working on ground up development right now.
Sweet. What are you looking at to do?
So 40 units in Patterson.
Oh, nice. Wild West in Patterson.
Yeah, Patterson.
Wild West.
Patterson's an environment for sure.
They just thumbs up the project. They say, we want building.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. It's but yeah, the building department is its own, sort of thing. But
They're wild, man.
In terms of like favorite thing to do, yeah, I think I found myself doing like affordable housing, right? I think that's important to me, right?
That's like the riches or the niches kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like a niche, and I'm trying to do more of it, right? And I think it's the double bottom line thing, right? It's like doing well and doing good at the same time. You know what I mean?
That's a great thing. Doing well and doing good. I like that expression.
Yeah, you have to be able to blend it, right? It's like at the end of the day, for me to win, you can also win too.
Oh man, I learned so much.
Yeah, and I don't mean to make it sound flowery, but it's you can do that, right? You can create a niche for yourself where you are doing well, you're doing well, you're helping people here in Newark, and you're doing good for yourself and your family, right?
I do it. This is one of the biggest things I've learned. Not only do I feel personally, because I have like a team of 15 right now, like 7 agents. We have 3 people overseas, 4 people overseas. We have 2 transaction coordinators, a director of ops, and Rami, the man behind the lens, the sniper. One of the best things I do is I provide people an opportunity to do what they love via like a job.
Yeah.
Like via like an opportunity to build. And I like really do push. Like me and Rami right now, we're locking in on content. I'm turning 30 on Monday.
Wow. Happy early birthday.
Thank
Taurus,
you.
Right?
Taurus, yes.
Yeah.
And on my team, we do Friday gratitude, right? So every Friday we say, what are you grateful for in the morning? And I say, well, I'm really grateful for my 20s, but here's why. My first like half of my 20s, my first my first 5-6 years, I was kind of just like survival mode. Look out for me. I got to win.
Yeah.
When I turned 27 into 28, like around 27, like 3 years ago, I had this click and I said, I got to do this for others. I'm pushing myself so much. I have way more than it happened November 2021, actually. So not even 3 years, 2.5 years. November 2021, October 2021, I had like basically a nervous breakdown. I literally like collapsed, like physical collapse. I didn't go to work for a few days. I ended up basically taking off for like over a course of 3 months, like maybe like a whole month. Just didn't would go into work and just leave like an hour later, 2 hours later. I was just beat. I was burnt. And I ended up putting myself in a position where I hired a coach. The coach helped me. And what they basically said was, you're pushing yourself so hard. I have like a lot of trauma, poverty, etc. But like, what do you actually want? And I realized what I actually wanted was not the McMansion. What I really wanted was not like the recognition of others. Like I used to want to be number 1 real estate team in New Jersey. I have zero ambition to be number 1 real estate team in New Jersey.
Yep.
All I want to do is impact and improve people's lives.
That's it.
Like that's actually that won't burn me out because that isn't, I know logically thinking and emotionally it's like, well, if I burn myself out, I can't impact others because I'm not even impacting myself. So like, who am I really going to improve life if my life sucks?
Yeah.
Anyways, with that said, enough about Brendan. Kyle, here's my question I'd love to end on. What would you say is one of the most surprising ways real estate, the industry, the landscape, the cityscape has formed you in your current life today?
It's a great question. I think it goes back to the ability to impact people, right? Because of where we are right now, because of the rate environment, because of the need for affordable housing, because of the need for housing in general, right? Here in the state of New Jersey, where we're sitting, right? It's allowed me to help a lot more people, right? And also in turn help myself, right? And help my family build wealth, right? Because there's a lot of work to be done. And so, yeah, I think the current state of New Jersey, current state of the markets, the environment. I know we didn't really touch a ton on markets, but that is allowing me, more freedom to run, right? And I think there's opportunity, and you just have to look for it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kyle Webster.
There we go.
We have Kyle here. If you're looking to build, if you're looking to just get some wonderful value into your life, please reach out to this man. We'll tag his information below. Adios.
Thank you.